Hi, and welcome back to the Toronto International Film Festival. Thanks for joining us for one of our Q&A sessions with the directors of films in Shortcuts program number 3 here at TIFF. My name is Jason Anderson, and I'm the programmer for Shortcuts. I'm very excited to be joined by directors of 4 films in the program, along with some interpreters who will be giving us some very valuable support. And first of all, I'd love for each of the filmmakers to introduce themselves and say which films they're here with at TIFF. I'll start with Yoriko.
水尻さん、まずは自己紹介と作品についてちょっと話を。はい。
自己紹介って何ですか？
自己紹介を。
不安な体というアニメーションを作った水尻より子です。日本に住んでます。
Hi, and my name is Yoriko Mizushiri. I'm a director of The Anxious Body. I'm living in Japan. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Great. And thanks also to Nobuaki, who's interpreting and is also a producer in the film. So thanks again. Next, Hamza.
Hi, my name is Hamza. I'm the writer and director of BHAI, and I'm really excited to be having a world premiere at TIFF. And thanks so much, Jason.
So I think it's so great to have you here. And Ramata, please.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Ramata, j'ai 35 ans, je suis franco-sénégalaise et je vous présente aujourd'hui mon film qui s'appelle ASTEL.
Hello, I am Ramata. I'm 35 years old. I'm from Senegal and also France. And today I have the pleasure to present you my short film, ASTEL.
Terrific. And again, we're so pleased to have ASTEL. And Ayce, another actually, Ramata and Ayce both returning to TIFF with new films. We're very happy to have them, but Ayce can introduce himself too.
Yeah, okay. I'm Ayce Kartal. I'm the director of the film I Gotta Look Good for the Apocalypse. It's an animation film. It's a short. Yeah.
Thanks again. Yeah, I'm really. I find that when I'm doing these sessions, I spend a lot of time thanking people. But I am very grateful to you for making these films and for sharing them with our audiences. We think they're all so special. And just to begin, I think I'd love to hear from all of the filmmakers about the inspirations for these films, really kind of how they began and why they felt so compelled to tell these stories and present the stories with audiences, or to audiences. And maybe we'll go reverse direction and start with Ayce.
Okay. My film is it is about isolation days. It's about Corona, but it's not about Corona because during the isolation days, I think most of the people experienced 2 different worlds. First one is the real world, which was frozen, dead, and it was lonely. And the second world was we were started to live in internet-based world. So this 2 contradiction was the starting point of the idea of the film, because the realistic world, the outside world, was for me exactly the meaning of the still life painting, because everything was frozen, everything was nothing, so it was dead. So I felt the real world was kind of oil painting, and we were at the same time we were living in a very artificial colors. We started to be virtual beings in a oil painting. I felt in that way. So this was the starting point. This was the contradiction in my head. Yeah.
It's amazing, and that juxtaposition plays out so brilliantly in the film. So we're thrilled about it. So, and I'm excited to talk more about the process, because I mean, with both animations, it's always so fascinating. But I was first of all shift to Ramata and talk about the beginnings of ASTEL, which is such a beautiful piece.
Alors, ASTEL parle d'une relation entre un père et une fille, et surtout le passage mélancolique lorsque ASTEL devient une jeune fille jusqu'à devenir une femme. Alors, pour moi, l'inspiration, c'est que j'ai une très grande passion pour la littérature. Donc, lorsque j'écris, je pars toujours d'un genre littéraire. Lorsque j'ai écrit dernièrement, je suis partie de contes ou de tragédies. Et pour ASTEL, je voulais vraiment m'inspirer d'une poésie. Donc, je voulais vraiment que mon film soit un très long poème, lyrique et mélancolique. C'est de là où est partie l'idée d'écrire ASTEL. Aussi, si j'ai choisi de raconter cette histoire de manière très poétique, c'est que pour moi, l'Afrique a beaucoup trop longtemps été décrite comme un continent de désespoir et de souffrance. Donc, comme scénariste et réalisatrice, ce que je souhaite, c'est vraiment stimuler les imaginaires avec mes histoires et faire rêver avec des histoires qui se déroulent dans une Afrique, mais qui est assez universelle, et ne pas parler juste de guerre, de terrorisme, de violence, d'excision, de violence des femmes. Je veux vraiment raconter de très belles histoires en Afrique et regarder l'Afrique d'une nouvelle manière, et de ne pas me limiter à des narrations sociales. Et c'est aussi une position vraiment très politique, ce film d'Astel.
Yes, so ASTEL is a story between a father and a daughter, and I showed the transition from a young girl to eventually a woman, and I wanted to tell the story in a melancholic way. I love literature, everything that's tragedy really inspires me. So for ASTEL, I wanted it to be a poem. I wanted to tell the story in a poetic way. As well, Africa is always shown in desperation, poverty, and all of that, but as a filmmaker, I wanted to tell a story that revolved around beauty. I wanted to step away from war and violence against women and all these issues in Africa, and just tell a story that has universal appeal as well, and give a fresh eyes on the continent of Africa, away from all its just the social political side of it.
Oh, it's terrific. I mean, the film has such poignancy and beauty and warmth, so we're very grateful again to have it at the festival.
Thank you.
And same question to Hamza, just because it's another, I mean, just part of a string of really terrific shorts, and I'm really happy to have you here now with BHAI.
Really grateful to be here, Jason, and it's just interesting hearing Ramata talk about like representation, and when you're creating cinema from a country that doesn't have a huge history off it, that kind of responsibility you carry. And with BHAI, a lot of my films are kind of focused on characters who are marginalized or find themselves outside of mainstream society. And with BHAI, I wanted to show like the moment of happiness that characters who maybe don't have the privilege of participating in society on a large mainstream level, how they still manage to find like a small pocket of happiness, a small moment of joy, and that was despite how chaotic the society that they're living in can be in. And this film was about these two brothers finding that in each other, and the journey of them finding that in each other. And that's kind of, I really wanted to highlight that even when, you may not have acceptance, there's still ways to survive, and how do people survive and find joy.
Great. Oh, and that's all those qualities are certainly very strong in the film. So thanks again. And shifting to Anxious Body, and I'd love to hear more about. I mean, this is such a unique film, and one I really love, and I'd love to hear about how this began for you.
はい、私は今までも、ずっと感触的なアニメーションを作ってきていて、で、大体はこう柔らかさとか、それがすごく滑らかに気持ちよく動くとかっていうことにフォーカスしているものを作ってきたんですけど、今回はそういうものにちょっとなんていうんですかね、歪みみたいなものを加えて、今までの作品とはちょっと違うような方向にしたいと思いました。
Oh, Nowaki, are you muted? Or you? Oh, there you go.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
I've been making animation film focusing on the sense of touch. But before Anxious Body, I tend to express the feeling of softness, maybe in a more smooth way. But in this film, I want to try the different way. So I try to make bring some noises and bring some distortion with smooth and tenderness.
で、生活してて、ふとした日常でも、すごい幸せだなって感じる時でも、不安っていうのは何かしら絶対、体の中にあって、で、そういう不安を感じるから、安心したくて別の何かを求めて感じて、で、また別の不安が出てきて、また何かを探してっていう、そういう繰り返しで生きているような気がしていて、で、そういうなんか感じることの繰り返しみたいなものをアニメーションとして表現したいなと思って、で、その繰り返しだけじゃなくて、繰り返しながらちょっとずつ変化とか、ちょっとずつ違っていくみたいなことを表現したいなと思いました。
I think in the daily lives, people, even when they feel happiness, there should be some sense of anxiety in the body, in the mind, and if to erase a sense of anxiousness, we try to do something different. But after that, new anxiety is born. So I want to express in the film. I want to express this kind of a chain of a repetition of the various feelings that one feelings lead to the next feelings and another feeling, then another feeling, another feelings.
I think the film is so successful, and there's certainly such a combination of anxiousness and pleasure and physicality. It's really an amazing piece. So thanks again. So yeah, actually, I'm just thinking about maybe I'll come back to the animations. I'd love to hear more about the processes of making those films, but maybe we'll just go to the live action films first, because they're also very they're all such rich films. But I'd love to hear from Ramata about ASTEL, about the process of really kind of obviously just sort of, I'm sure, I'd love to hear what your relationship with this community and this part of Senegal and finding these amazing actors who are, kind of bring this story to life in so many ways.
Alors, pour ASTEL, ce sont tous des acteurs non professionnels et pour la plupart analphabètes. Donc, ils savent ni lire ni écrire. Ils vivent. Alors, l'intrigue se déroule au Fouta. Le Fouta, c'est une région qui se trouve au nord du Sénégal et c'est une communauté qui s'appelle la communauté Peul. Donc, ils vivent dans des villages très éloignés de la capitale. C'est un village sans électricité. Donc, ce sont des gens qui ont très peu de rapport à l'image, au cinéma, et parce qu'ils n'ont pas de télé et ils n'ont pas de smartphone. Donc, moi, c'est la première fois que je dirigeais ces acteurs-là. Et comme ils savaient ni lire ni écrire, j'ai dû trouver un moyen de les diriger. Je suis passée par l'oralité, déjà, parce que j'ai pris le temps de comme ils savent pas lire, ils n'ont pas pu lire le scénario. J'ai passé du temps à leur raconter les histoires, raconter leurs personnages et discuter avec eux de la complexité de leurs personnages et de leur émotion. C'était beaucoup plus de discussion qu'un apprentissage de dialogue. Et une fois qu'ils avaient compris leurs personnages, avec un coach qui est maître d'école dans le village, qui m'a aidé à leur faire répéter les dialogues, car je laisse très peu de place à l'improvisation.
Yes, I worked with an entire cast of non-professional actors, and they were all illiterate, so they did not know how to read or write. The story is set in Fouta, which is an isolated region in the north of Senegal, where there's no electricity, there's no TV, there's no access. It's very far away from the main capital city. And this was my first time also working with illiterate actors, and therefore I need to find different ways, creative ways to direct them. And I used I verbalized a lot. So I was telling them the story, telling them the characters, telling them the emotions that they should feel. I was telling them the story. And therefore my direction was more about discussion and less about learning a script by heart. And then I also worked with a coach to help them, because I don't want to leave anything to chance to improvisation.
Sorry?
No, go ahead. Please continue.
Ok. Juste sur le processus des nuances et des dynamiques de la communauté. En fait, c'est un peuple, le peuple Peul est un peuple très pudique, très digne et surtout très fier. Ils ont une manière d'être entre eux qui est très différente des gens de l'Occident. Ils ont vraiment une façon de communiquer leurs émotions qui est très différente des Occidentaux. Par exemple, ils se touchent pas en public. ils ne se parlent jamais ouvertement de leurs émotions et de leurs sentiments. Alors j'ai dû trouver une autre manière de faire naître l'émotion par les regards, par les silences, par les placements de corps par exemple, très subtils et les micro-mouvements. Le rythme aussi de ces gens, c'est un rythme très très lent, différent du rythme occidental dans lequel j'ai grandi. Par exemple, l'actrice principale, Awa, dans une scène, a dû beaucoup courir, mais c'est une fille qui ne court jamais. Elle a 13 ans, mais elle a presque jamais couru de sa vie, et donc cette scène juste de courir était très difficile pour elle. Donc voilà, la dynamique de la communauté, c'était vraiment de trouver comment communiquer des émotions sans passer par la parole et sans passer par le toucher.
Yes, I just want to touch on the process of making the film and the dynamics, how I show the dynamics of the community. So this group is called the Pôle. C'est bien ça, Ramata?
Pôle? Oui, c'est Pôle. Ouais.
Yes, Pôle. And they're a very proud but modest also group. And their culture is very different from the West, what we're used to. And therefore, I couldn't use speech or our usual ways of communicating. So instead, I showed all the dynamics and emotions through looks and silences and micro body placements and other more subtle aspects. And the rhythm of life is also very different, completely different from what I grew up in, the fast-paced life that I know. For example, Awa, the main character, she there's a scene where she had to run a lot. And as a 13-year-old, you'd think it'd be no problem for her, but she never really ran a lot in her life because their pace of life is just so slow. So that was quite a difficult scene for her. And therefore, I need to find ways to show the dynamics, but without using speech or what we're usually used to here in the West.
Yeah, it's fantastic that the actors, you know, as non-professionals, as first. I mean, it's amazing what they bring to the film, and that's all shines through. So thanks again, and it's actually great. I mean, just to talk to Hamza about BHAI, because again, working with certainly having a differently abled cast member, just I'm sure the need to feel like, well, it's just the need to protect, you know, just to keep people safe and to keep people okay within this. And again, within, you know, very, I'm sure very charged. I mean, this is Karachi at its probably, you know, one of a typically chaotic moment in Karachi for all this to be happening. I think it's amazing what you're able to do.
It was really interesting. Like the way we went about casting was so. The character who plays the older brother, the film is also inspired by his experiences of having a younger sibling who is differently able. So, and then there was this thing happening in Pakistan at that point in mainstream media where a lot of the villains in like television shows were people who are differently abled. And I don't know how that happened. And then I was just like, okay, we're not going to do this. And also Sia's movie had come out about that time where they do a representation of autism that's pretty bad, in my opinion. And so I really wanted to have somebody who was differently abled in the role of the younger brother who is on the autism spectrum. And so we started working with some NGOs and we did casting through Special Olympics Pakistan. And it was really amazing because they brought in all these teenagers who are incredible athletes and so gifted. And we met with them and we met with their parents and we learned their experiences. And then, you know, we met Ayan, who plays the role of the younger brother. And he was just such a sweet kid and also an animator and also really passionate about classical music and plays the violin. And that's how that ended up feeding into the film as well. And we met his mother and, you know, hearing about how their experience in society is so far removed and how so much of their lives play out at home. And then thinking about, you know, what's happening in the world in terms of representation. And then just meeting somebody who's a fantastic actor, you know, at the end of the day. So all of these factors came together and, you know, us casting and deciding to work with Ayan and my collaborator, Muhammad Ali Hashmi, who plays the role of the older brother, was really a big part of that. And for me, it was so much learning in terms of how to direct somebody who's differently abled and what that process is like. And as you said, Jason, creating a space where they feel safe. And we casted before the pandemic. So then the pandemic happened. You know, we were no longer able to meet in person. So then we spent around 8 months doing Zoom rehearsals And in that period, I was also learning how to, what are the best practices of how to work with somebody who's differently abled. And then at the same time, Ayan, because of the way that the COVID world is, he was getting used to performing in front of the camera, and this is something that like just happened organically because of Zoom rehearsals. So after 8 months of Zoom rehearsals, he was so comfortable with turning it on for a camera. So it's a blessing in some ways that the way that this played out. And then when we got him on set, he was the hardest worker there. It was, like you said, it was like 1,000,000 degrees, the middle of the city between the first and second wave. The restaurant we were shooting in flooded halfway through. And it flooded onto like actors holding. So then we had to move them all out into the street. And him and his mother were like, they were going above and beyond because they felt like they had more to prove, because this is the kind of opportunity that might not come again. So it was a really fulfilling experience. And, it's something that I hope encourages other directors and other people in power to empower those who might not have those chances otherwise.
Oh, I hope so too. And I was just thinking, you had all this going on and a monkey, so that's also triply impressive. So, but yeah, not to make light of it, it really is. It's really special what you've been able to achieve with the film. So thanks again. And also, it's interesting just because obviously, COVID and the pandemic touches all of the films we're playing this year in some way. And I would just love to hear from Ayce about, again, this process of sort of sourcing all these images and segments that you find online and then treating them the way you do. Like what was this process like for you?
Yeah, okay. When I decided to make a film about our new lives, I've decided that all the film must be internet based. Because all our lives are going on internet. So on the other hand, I've noticed that millions and millions of people are in online games as well, doing VR games. Maybe not only games, they are doing their business, jobs, and lots of things. But especially in the games, I was watching from the YouTube in isolation days. I was like this, and I've noticed that I'm seeing some cities in a virtual way. For example, in the game, we see a street in Paris, which is full of people and very crowded. But when I search and see on the Google map or the exact street of Paris, nobody is there. Nothing is happening. So I've noticed that I can find the empty version of the cities in the real life photos. And then I can find the crowded and fun version of the same cities or same places in the VR games or online games. So I started to search the whole internet. Then I collected all of them together. And then for the realistic parts of the film, of the scenes, we took the pictures of the cities or streets as an example. Then we started to redraw them, reanimate them, and repaint them. And all of them are hand painted, frame by frame. Just we took the real life photos as an example. So the VR parts are all original VR games of the online VR players live, because maybe you know or you don't know, I don't know. There are millions of fans of VR game players who don't have VR helmets or VR accessories, but they are only watchers and they watch them as a TV serial. So the gamers are from YouTube. The places are from internet, but all of them are repainted and reanimated. Yes.
It's incredible. I mean, that the effect is sort of just so surreal and delirious, but yet it's, you know, I think you've kind of gone with, you know, and how the film kind of comments on our sort of the experience of living in these different realities at the same time. Is really phenomenal. So thanks for all of your labor. I mean, almost it's a and the same thing for Anxious Body and Yoriko talking about the process of making the film, because obviously there's a lot of, you know, you know, hand-drawn work, but also, and the process of building the film I'd love to hear about, but also like the use of sound is so astonishing too. And that, like you were saying about the kind of having a noisier kind of film for you, I think is very effective. So I'd love to hear about the process of making Anxious Body.
制作のプロセスを手書きで作ってると思うんですけど、まあ、そのあたりと、あとまあ音楽について、やっぱり音楽が非常に素晴らしくて、何かノイズを持ち込んでくれてるような感じがあって、その音楽の作り方、教えてください。
私はアニメーションハンドドローイングで描いてるんですけど、全部手書きでっていうかデジタルで描いていて、フォトショップで描いてるんですけど、まああんまりそのプロセス的にはあんまり変わったことはしてなくて、本当に基本的な一枚一枚描いて、でそれを色つけて編集するっていう形なんですけど、でまあプロセス的にはそれぐらいで、今回その構成とかその内容を考える上で、まあ大体その私作品を作るときは一個の動きとか、こういう動きが最初やりたいっていうのがあって、でそこからイメージを膨らましていくんですけど、今回はその冒頭のセロテープを切るっていう動きがあるんですけど、そこからイメージを膨らませていって、そのセロテープを切るっていう簡単な動きの中にもいろんな要素があると思っていて、もうセロテープのその直線的な形とか長細い形とか掴んだ時のひっつく感じ、皮膚感覚とか、そういう形をこうその後の動きでいろいろ分解して動きとしてイメージしていって、でそれをまた組み合わせてつなげて動きを作っていくっていう形で考えていきました。
About the process of making, I think my animation process is very normal one. You know, I draw every single lines digitally, but it's on Photoshop, and then do coloring and edit it. So this is very normal. But I think my uniqueness of making the film is I always start with one particular moment. In my mind, then I try to kind of spread these images into various images. In case of this film, the scene, the sellotape, cutting the sellotape is my beginning, and it's very simple movement. But if you decompose the scene, it actually consists of many layers, like linear shape of the sellotape cutter, and also it's a sticky touches when you touch the sellotapes. So I try to decompose every element in the very simple tape cutting. Then I try to recompose again into single images.
音に関しては、今回は音楽家の方と少しずつできたアニメーションを共有しながら音楽の方もイメージしてもらって、でそれを最後に合体させるって形で、私からはあまりリクエスト、こういう音がいいっていう風な ことはあまり言わずに、ほとんどお任せで、作ってもらったんですけど、で、出来上がってきたものが、やっぱり一つ一つの動きに対して、繊細にその音が融合しているというか、効果音的とも言えるんですが、なんかそのままその動きを表現してるっていうだけじゃなくて、なんかちょっとなんか違和感が、動きに対しての音として違和感があったりとか、そういう意味でも歪みみたいなものが出て、その作品としてのなんか深みになったのかなと思います。
About the sound, the Yuka Honda, she was famous for the Chibomat, and she composed the film. But the way of composing the film and the music is like that. When I finished a few scenes, I sent her them, not the whole completed film, but one by one, I sent it to her. But before the completion, I never heard any of the sound from her. But when I received the sounds, I feel like it's very perfect match. Not perfect match as, but there is something very slight gap and slight noises, that distortion between the relationship between the image and sound, and but it works really well, and it gives very deep emotion in this film. So I really love sound.
It is such an amazing effect. It really is. And again, I'm sad we're out of time, because I'd love to hear more about the films, but I think all of the films have such incredible impact, and I'm again very grateful to all of the filmmakers for achieving what they've achieved and for sharing them with our audience. So thanks again to everyone, and thanks to viewers for participating too. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.